Okay, everyone. Guess what? We're back to this foolishness. I had a very hard time the other day, and by the other day I mean today, remembering exactly what game I was playing or how far I was in it. I think it's a sign I may be doing this a bit too much. But I've intentionally kind of switched it up between Pokemon and Final Fantasy games so that I'm not like completely misremembering stuff like that. Anyway, so in personal health news, I just took my first dose of thyroid medication. Probably something that should have happened a long time ago. But sometimes my doctor can be very conservative when it comes to stuff like that. I don't know if I explained this in a previous video. I also don't know if I'm going the right direction. I think we need to go this way. Um, crit for 40. Um, but the way my thyroid is set up over the last, let's say, 6 months or so, I've had lab draws done. Okay, so Geomancer is supposed to keep me from stepping on things inappropriately. Power armlet. Is it appropriate? Hmm. I mean, it does speed him up, I guess, ever so slightly. Um, how many moon ring blades do we have? Okay. Oh, sure, why not? I'm not a huge fan of the age status, but anyway, it's the way my thyroid is set up. Let me just double check, make sure my mute's not on. Okay, because I would be mad at that point to have to repeat this. So they do these tests where they're looking at um, elevated or suppressed levels, one way or the other. No, 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 no. She's equipped with. Okay. Anyway, so your thyroid tells your pituitary gland, um, or vice versa. They communicate with one another as to what is the next best step in your daily health, right? And you have thyroid secretion hormone that comes from the pituitary gland, I believe, saying, "Hey, guy, why don't we produce some more thyroid hormone?" And your thyroid says, "Sure, let's do that." Um, is she gonna attack or not? Um, and then you have thyroid hormone in your blood, and uh, unfortunately, it's not so simple as to say like it's just one type of thyroid hormone. There are multiple. In my case, my thyroid secretion hormone levels keep going down to the point where they're basically negligible at this point. Basically, my brain has said, like, stop it. Seriously, stop producing so much thyroid hormone. Stop. We have enough. But the most basic read of my thyroid levels says that my thyroid levels are on the high end of normal, but they keep being modulated from the high end of normal. Meaning they stay on the high end of normal. They seem to, go up, go down here, there, and everywhere, but not to a great extent. Enough to raise questions as to why it is my brain is telling my body to produce less and less hormone, and I have the same amount of hormone in my system. Like, where is it coming from exactly? And because I already have a condition called Graves' disease, the assumption is that I have way too much what we'll call a synthetic thyroid secretion hormone. We've gone the wrong way. We'll come back here. So what ends up happening with Graves' disease is the autoimmune cells that are produced, all the bros, they will produce almost like a synthetic sort of TSH. So that even though your body is saying, or your brain, I should say, it's saying, listen, we don't need any more. The signals that your thyroid ends up getting is different than what the brain is telling it. And as it so happens, that disruption of signaling it tends to have more aggravated effects on your eyes, your optical nerves and tissues. But because it has such a strong effect on your thyroid itself, we call it a thyroid disease. I'm sorry, did I get everything that needed to be gotten? Oh, no, we're going this way. Okay. I'm here trying to have a serious conversation and hunt for treasure at the same time. Okay. We're about to have to fight a boss. And we should be gaining a level soon. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that. So, basically, in my case, it's kind of strange. Usually people will say that it's, if you have Graves' disease, that it's in the initial stages of an overload of thyroid hormone. Like, you're not there yet. The reason being that your thyroid hormones that are normally picked up in the blood, referred to as T4. Like, if you ever have like a normal workup, like a routine physical where they do labs and they check your thyroid, they'll grab TSH and grab T4 basically, just because that gives a general sense of where you're at. We should really work up here, to be honest, since these enemies are so easy. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, your body ultimately ends up changing T4 into T3, and it accounts for maybe 20% of your total quote-unquote thyroid hormone. Um, but the working theory for people like myself that have a high overall thyroid level, but a relatively normal T4 level, meaning your T3 is elevated, but your T4 is not. It means that your thyroid is effectively converting T4 into T3, but it's basically dumping it though. Um, and that's not a good position to be in because it means your body is getting way too much T3 while it's getting normal T4. So if you were just looking at those two numbers, if you're looking at TSH and T4, you might be a bit, baffled as to why your body is resisting thyroid production so much. But in my case, again, I say all of that because my thyroid level over the last 6 months, they've checked it 3 times. Every time they check it, my thyroid level stays the same, but my TSH gets lower and lower and lower, meaning that my brain is fighting against something with my thyroid to keep it from producing so much thyroid hormone. It's in a certain sense, it's setting a boundary that my thyroid continues to cross, and so it's setting the boundary farther and farther away. And that has led to some problems, we'll say. So, after having said all of that, right before I started the stream, I was able to take my first dose of what is effectively thyroid suppression hormone, and it will take some weeks to really get a good sense. Oh no. Do I have a flame ring equipped? Nope. I don't like it. Ooh, that dealt a lot of damage. This thing's weakness changes, so I don't know how this is gonna go. I think it changes like every 2000. At this point I should have it memorized, but I don't. Okay, so it's got high defense. So that wind slash again. Okay, it's okay damage. I'll take it. Okay, but what about ice? Okay, alright. Ice heals. What do we got? What do we got? If ice heals it, let's just assume it's flame. Boom. Let's go. That was a waste of a rod, but okay. Flame rod, summon. Okay, so it's changed again. Don't I have like an ice bow of some kind? Oh, because the shield. Okay, well I'm not really worried about that then. Okay. So what are we dealing with here? Are we back to Frost? Okay, that was not very helpful. Can we go back to... Where's the sword at? I think at some point wind will heal it. I should point out we're clearly over leveled for this. If you didn't notice. Okay, it came back to life. Question is, what is it weak against? I want to say physical attacks, but... Yeah, we can go with Chocobo. Nothing wrong with that. 216. Not this again. Okay, so that didn't do anything. So it's null to wind. What about lightning? We haven't messed with that much. Is it all magic? I think it is all magic. Get in there. No, that was dumb. 96. This could take a moment. Let me figure something out here. Oh, great. Nice. Nice evade. So that did do some damage though, right? I said each one has 2,000 life, so... I like how it has fire coming out of its armpits. Oh, that was dumb. Autopilot took over on that one. What about Sylph? Oh wow, that was... Not much you can do. Nope. Again, super dumb. I'm running a gambit here. Yeah. Single digit life. Wahaha. Haha. So when I was younger, the first Final Fantasy game that I truly played was Final Fantasy 4, then Final Fantasy 2 for Super Nintendo. And I was a huge fan of Tella. I don't know why, uh, but for whatever reason, he had forgotten his own spells and remembers them later. I wonder to what extent the designers of this game um, were lifting off of Tella's story and Galef's story. Which is to say, he spends the first half of whatever you think of the game as um, not remembering who he is or all of his abilities, and all of a sudden he has this momentous occasion where he remembers everything. To this day, I'm still not fully aware of what Tycoon was trying to accomplish with that. I think he was trying to take the crystal shards and put them back where they came from, but that hasn't worked in any of the other cases. So I don't know why. I don't know if he was using magic to do it. I don't know. Why did they come to her instead of Galef? So now we can make Galef a dancer. Who's excited? That one unopened treasure makes me think that we missed something while we were there. Also, in retrospect, I do think it's a bit unfair to characterize Final Fantasy VI as the first game in the series where the final boss gets what he wants. Basically, the game ends before it ends again. Like it ends halfway through, and then it's kind of like, oh, okay, part two. So you got part one, part two in the same game. But in this game, X-Death has a series of victories that kind of build and build. to where you can kind of see the middle of the game being when World 1 and World 2 are separated from one another. Then when they come together, there is this sense of loss there. It's very similar to the World of Ruin in Final Fantasy VI. Okay, just kidding. No more Galef. No, we'll get him back. But the difference is that Exdeath never gets what he wants. Spoiler alert, he ends up being absorbed by the evil that he's trying to control. Which, I don't know, you could say the same thing about Kefka, but Kefka largely got what he wanted. And Kefka succeeded. I wonder if that triggers anytime you try to land anywhere. It just so happened that I landed in the right spot. I didn't want to have to fight with that single digit nonsense. Let's go. I don't know why that door requires a button. Also, I guess one of the plus sides of the thyroid medication is that it won't actually have any noticeable side effects. Usually. Because I've taken it before, I wouldn't expect to have a whole lot of side effects. That's, wow. I have all these different games saved. $28. Good. Oh, that was okay. I know what that was. That was one of my natural run games. It was 2 monks, a red mage, and a thief. And so I hyper leveled Lena, so she would have access to X magic and be able to cast like level 2 spells as if they were level 3. Being the only one that can cast magic out of the whole bunch, that was the only way I could survive that. But that can go. All right. What are we doing here? That is such a... Ugh. And of course, we don't have any of... we don't have any of the equipment that Galef had, which is really not important because nobody can use it, but eventually it'll make a difference because we can sell it. There is an art in the Final Fantasy series of remembering when you're going to lose characters so that you can unequip them and or sell their stuff. And that's very important in Final Fantasy 4 because it's a very linear game, and so it's kind of predictable when you're going to lose characters. So if you know you're going to lose a character, just unequip them. If they're never coming back, go ahead, or even if they are coming back, just unequip them. Go ahead and take care of it. The same is true for Final Fantasy 9. I didn't get very far in that game. I would say maybe a fourth of the way. No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that either. Here's the thing. If one of these dies before the rest of them do, then they end up reviving each other. So they all have to die at the same time. Satan. Oh, they're all going to do it themselves? Okay. Nice. Can we go, please? You see this? We're just stuck. Everyone's frozen. Well, I feel like this battle could take a minute. But I think the other part of it too is them casting an exploder. If they're not reviving each other, they're blowing you up. Again, with the freeze, I don't know what that's about. Sometimes there's just calculations that go on in the background of this game. Why I said what I said about X-Death and winning is that, in a certain sense, he did kind of get what he wanted at this stage by destroying all 4 of the crystals. See what I'm saying? Hold on. Let's see. Let me try something. Because if this doesn't take them out, this battle's going to get on my nerves. The reason I did the multi-target attack is that they would all see. Okay. All right. Different perspective. Different way to do this. I'm just gonna. That's why I saved before we went in. But that seems to be a theme in this game. The X-Death tends to get what he wants. And I've realized the evil villains, you know, of course they get what they want. You walk into the trap every time, kind of thing. But it's like consistent. Like you're consistently being slapped in the face by how much of what X-Death wants X-Death gets. Oh, wow, I did not save in front of the other. Okay, I'll take that. That's my fault. It's my fault. Now the problem for me comes. I did say that I was going to donate $20 or my game clock, whichever is higher. Technically, my run clock is going to be higher than this because of resets like that. So, is it honest for me to only donate the game clock? Things to think about. I have some time to come to a conclusion about that, I suppose. No, we're not summoning. We are frost riding these lovely, lovely enemies. Just hopefully this is a one-hit kill. I don't have time. That's okay. And they don't cure themselves. Interesting. Ooh, nice. Ice rods it is. Oh, thanks for the potion, guys. Alright, so that was a lot easier the second time. Karnak, where you at? I suppose I probably could have teleported over here, huh? Would that have worked? I don't like dropping the rods like that. They're clearly a little overpowered, but... Titan? Nice. Honestly, I think some of the higher level spells might do more damage. I should just use the bell and see if that actually does anything. Let's see. So I think it was 513 that it did. Yeah. Nice. Wind slash in the cave. Nice. So we have another summon under our belt. That battle messed us up. I want to say the enemy we fight next can cast Aqua Rake and Flame Ring should be weak to water. Nullifies ice. Hold on, let me double check something. Flame Ring FF5, yeah. Yeah, it's weak to water, so that's what I thought. Also, 2 become 1. I think it's interesting. We're fighting something that is it's a conglomeration of enemies. No, it's certainly more than 2 enemies. Alright, so let's look at Titan, actually. Mage Masher, because it's got more magic attack than anything else. And then Titan, let's see what it does. Alright, 855. Alright, this is a losing battle with that. With that move. Okay. So are we really gonna go to the next world? Probably not. Not right yet. Actually, I do think that dancers may able to use whips. May be able to use whips. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. So we'll hold on to that thought. Nothing can equip shields now. Nothing can equip armor now. There you go. Now begins the grind. Okay, first of all, there we go. That's not helpful. Alright, so let's do one at a time here. That is not going to get us what we want, clearly, because Earthquake was a no-go. Let's look at Shiva, right? Shiva is the lowest cost out of all of them. And I think it does enough damage to take him out. Man, this takes forever. Wait a second, what? Interesting. I wonder how many times I've done that on accident and didn't notice. If it weren't for the problem of back attacks, I would probably kill off either Bartz or Ferris or both, just to speed up this process a little bit. Because there's grinding enough to get another flame ring. That's number one. There's also grinding enough to store up on some rods, and grinding enough to make adequate purchases once we get to the next world. Because grinding in that world is a lot more annoying than this one. And I may be having to use a lot more fast forwarding because this is a lot of nothing happening at the speed of absolute slowness. So that game that I overrode earlier, that save, I did something very similar with Lena as a red mage that I'm doing right now. Just using her to grind. We could have a similar experience in the Northwest continent, where we actually buy the rings. But there's a series of enemies there, one of which is very weak to ice, and we could dispense with them very quickly. But you don't always fight the enemy. You might fight it like 5 out of every 16 battles or something like this. and the rest of the battles are boring and unproductive. So to me, this is a worthwhile investment. Though I certainly understand why to other people it may seem like watching paint dry, especially with this Shiva animation. All the bros. Yeah, as a result, um, I almost called him Bannon. Galef uh, is going to be at a level disadvantage in the next world, but I wouldn't say tremendously so. But it starts off with him in a battle with Gilgamesh. That's his first main fight, and he's going to have to do that fight as a dancer, which I think is hilarious. As a matter of fact, the rest of the game, seeing Galef as a dancer is going to be so bizarre. Look, just hurry up and do it. She should be running out of MP soon. Okay. So we got 6 more battles. I'm assuming the speed shake casts haste. It's been a very long time since I played with a chemist. It's only been 2 battles since I said that she had 6 battles left. Feels about like it's been 2 years. Also, I don't know why I keep overshooting Shiva every single time in the menu. We may want to experiment with a different summon, just because it might be faster. One more. At this point, anything that would save us time would be nice. And of course, what's wild is that I probably won't use both flame rings. They're very useful for one battle. Just like the coral rings are really only good for one battle. I think 2 if you feel like fighting a super boss. That does seem faster, doesn't it? Yeah, definitely faster. Listen, I'm not trying to make anybody sick here, but I'm not sure who wants to sit here and watch me grind like this over and over and over. Of course, I could make the commentary interesting, right? Nice. Let's go ahead and throw that on there. If I haven't said this already, I did confirm that I do have a better understanding of how Geomancers work. It is very similar to Mog, except for it's not set up for specific like groups of terrain, but there are some that are very specific, like very specific locations will have very specific effects. But it's basically like that. And then so for every 10 levels that the Geomancer gains, there's another ability that's added to the possibility list, basically. And they do, for the most part, increase in like severity and effectiveness in overall battle, and you can strategize around that just based on the chances alone. But the problem you run into is that there are some abilities that have a specific purpose that may not be helpful in your current battle. Like for instance, Wind Slash is now a predominant move, which is nice. That seemed to do nothing. So moves like that are rare, and they, as you move up the chain, so to speak, with your levels, those rarer moves become more common. The problem with that is that it becomes more and more unpredictable as to how effective you might be in that circumstance. So that's really the challenge of as you move forward. So for instance, Wind Slash being used is going to become less and less common, which in my opinion would be less and less helpful. I like being able to lean on Wind Slash being a known as a possibility, but We shall see. Ferris may become more of an attacker or item user. I wouldn't even say a jack of all trades. I feel like that's an insult to character types that have a diversity of useful abilities. Because of Geomancers having high magic power and the bells um, having the possibility of increasing certain types of magic damage, it's suggested that you give a Geomancer like a secondary either black magic or summon ability because of how much more of a bonus that would be to your overall strategy. In my case, um, our Geomancer can't cast any spells. So that's not really going to change anything for us. We're close. She can do one more. I'm sorry. Not everyone gained a level. I really should stagger it though. I should take Ferris out for a while so that they're not all the same level. That can be problematic when you start fighting enemies that do like level 2 this, level 3 that, level 4, level 5, whatever spells. If you're all the same level and you all get hit, it becomes a pretty bad day pretty quickly. Not that. See, that's the encounter we don't want. Okay. See how many battles it takes to actually run into the mini dragons. Can I run from this? Okay, because that battle is so boring and unhelpful. I think you can get some like mithril armor as a drop. I don't think it's an armor. I think it's like a... Here we go. I don't know why I did that. I should have known better. We've gone through 2 rounds. $900 gil, 1,500 experience. So the output is like 3 to 5 times higher, but it takes 3 times as long to get through the fight. And on top of that, the other random encounters do not don't really benefit you that much. I mean, if we all had flame rings, that would be nice. Because then their frostbite wouldn't have anything to, it wouldn't touch us. Things to think about. Okay. Let me see if I can get me something to drink. Yeah, one of the challenges that I found, regardless of my personal health condition, and I do wonder this about some other gamers as well, is being able to stay hydrated. It's not really a priority, right? You kind of zone out. You kind of forget to take care of yourself, which is a very important step. You don't want to miss it. Actually, here's what I want. I want to do the water one, not that one. Nope. That. I want to see if it kills them. Okay. So it's theoretically possible to get a Geomancer up to a point where they are, in fact, able to kill that with that, but you can't guarantee it. You can't guarantee which move they're going to do, so, like, doing that as a solo run, what is she equipped with? Okay, so actually that damage was not there. If I had not made that happen like that with the Geomancer, I'm not sure that would have worked. That's what I get for hesitating. I can tell you this story. It's going to be kind of difficult to cut out some of the relevant details because I don't want to reveal too much of somebody else's personal information. But very recently, someone came up to me and was telling me about they had an experience with their daughter who's in high school, and this high schooler was previously an all-A student, you know, basically an honor student. And very recently, she had decided to take her own life because her scores were not where they needed to be. She's basically failing out of school, and part of it has to do with schooling from home and the discipline that goes behind that, and she just didn't have it. She could do well in school, but the structure of going to school and interacting in that school environment was effective for her in a way that learning from home was not. So much so that, you know, she wasn't really attending her classes. Apparently wasn't even attempting exams and that sort of thing. Now, as someone who almost flunked out of the 7th grade, not due to lack of intelligence or capacity to learn or to demonstrate that I learned anything, it had more to do with a willingness to participate in a system where I already, in a certain sense, felt invisible. What difference does me failing make, you know? I'm not really sure anymore if I have the right answer or response to this. This conversation with this woman lasted for several minutes. She was very eager to talk to someone who could listen and understand what she was going through. She didn't ask me how I understood it, and it's not just from my personal experience when I was in middle school. I've known teenagers very recently whose performance in school has contributed to suicidal thoughts and behaviors. So it's relevant to me in a way that the person that was speaking to me had no clue. And I'm not mad about it. I'm glad we had that conversation. I'm glad that her daughter is getting treatment. But it is curious how we get to a point in our lives where we feel like not only have we made it, but we identify with the status of having made it, so that when that is challenged or when that's taken away from us, that we act as if we had died and yet we were still alive and not able to attend our own funeral. And this creates such a conflict of emotions surrounding our own personal identity and what our way forward is. I recently heard Jordan Peterson describe your person, who you see yourself as, is basically a community of persons stretched out over your entire lifetime. So from the time you were born to the present and then extending out into the future, every instance of yourself is part of a community that you share with yourself. Like, it's one thing to say, well, I know my neighbor, you know, I know my family, I know my coworkers, I know people from school, right? But to be able to have that same understanding about who you are and what you represent and what you're trying to accomplish, I thought that was an insightful way of putting it, because you have to learn, just like you have to learn to cooperate with, you know, a spouse, um, or, you know, a coworker where you're in a long-term working relationship with them. You know, you have to learn to identify with yourself as like a system, part of an organization, in the same way that you would look at individuals, separate people, as part of that as well. And then on top of that, the relationships that you're in, right? When you're with someone right now, like you're watching me play this game right now, you already have some assumptions in mind about whether or not I'm going to spend the rest of my life playing this game, or whether this is going to be the last time I ever played this game, or was this the last time you ever watched my channel or something, right? It's like you already built in assumptions about who I am and what I'm going to do and what your level of interaction is with that. Um, I think one of the things I try not to do very often, I do it sometimes, is to remind people to subscribe and to hit the notification bell. And to, you know, I this whole time I've been doing these streams, I don't think I've ever told anyone to like the video. You know, if you, in my view, if you have to be reminded to like something or to show that you like something, maybe I've done something wrong. But from a fundamental human perspective, people may need to be reminded. Some people, you know, when it comes to being, let's say, a nice person, some people are genuinely nice people down inside. But when it comes down to everyday human interaction, they may not be so nice. Just because they have made assumptions about how that's communicated. And so tying that back, let me tie that back into the original thought. So when it comes to a sense of isolation that we experience, that leads to depression, leads to anxiety, leads to suicidal thoughts and behaviors, part of that may well be not just a separation from people around you, but a separation from yourself, you know, looking towards the future, but also looking in the past. I'm feeling like maybe the past does connect the future, but you don't have any real connection with it right now. Personally, it's kind of happening around you instead of through you, you know, that sort of thing. Now, granted, I did not explain this. I did not explain this to the mother I was talking to. I dare not. But it was something that came to mind, that she had no idea that in a certain sense I've looked into her eyes before, right? And not just because I've known this person for a while, but in the sense of I've seen the look on someone's face when someone they care about is suicidal or has attempted to commit suicide, and not really being able to see a way out, not being able to know what next steps are supposed to be taken, to make sure the person they care about um, stays safe and feels loved and connected. I can say that from personal experience because I've seen that on other parents' faces, for instance, but I've also seen it on my own face as I've tried to interface with people who are struggling with that, right? And the flip of it is I felt like I was also seeing straight through her, because it, aside from my own personal experience with adults whose children are suffering from suicidal behavior or thoughts of behavior, um, I have also personally sat eye to eye with teenagers that were struggling with that. And I've had to have some very tough conversations as a result of that. And so there was a kind of pain in her eyes. And the irony of this, of course, I was wearing a mask at the time, and so was she. So we really couldn't read anything else off each other's face. But there was a sort of pain in her eyes that I understood, uh, almost far more than I feel like I should have. I found it very interesting that she felt like opening up to me about all of that without having known any of my own personal experience. And maybe it's for the best. Maybe if she thought that I knew more, she would have dug more instead of just sharing from her heart as she did. I don't know. But I don't know. The whole experience led me to question a lot of assumptions I made about having conversations about suicide, um, especially when it comes to teenagers, and specifically in this new era that we live in, this COVID society, um, where teenagers are no longer able to have some of the normal teenager type experiences that they used to, or if they did, that it was considered wrong or illegal. And so you're essentially criminalizing or demonizing normal impulses in a way that is leading to either um, a deviant sort of behavior, right, or is leading to a complete shutdown where people are these kids are giving up on themselves, they're giving up on life, they're giving up on their neighbors, they're giving up on family members. Um, if they're in church, they're giving up on church. To be honest, in the role that I play at my current church, um, the teenagers that I work with all suffer from some form of darkness that's related to that. And they understandably feel very isolated from the other adults in their life because the other adults don't they either see it and don't understand it or they don't see it at all. Um, and so then it becomes a point of crisis where they're not responding until um, it's almost too late. And I don't want to say too late from the perspective of perhaps the teenagers have or will ultimately commit suicide. I don't think that's the case. But I think it's too late to establish trust and establish faith in the process that could come out of a relationship between that child and any other adult in their life, simply because they have this experience that they can no longer uh, trust anyone to discuss openly. Um, and so something as simple as feeling this disconnect from schooling. So I do well in school, and now all of a sudden I don't do well in school, and now I feel very disconnected from myself, right? That basic kind of conversation and seeing how far down that goes. It's not happening, and it's when I say that it's too late, what I mean is that it is setting in with the youth of our day. Um, that sense of loneliness, detachment, and despair is almost normal and expected, and that everyone's supposed to put on a smile in front of everyone else and suffer behind closed doors. It, uh, it's almost like abuse without an abuser, right? Because it's so systematic. Um, I've mentioned this in a previous stream, talking about the concept of gaslighting, meaning what an abuser would normally do if they wanted to distort your perspective of reality so that they could exert influence on you or exert control over you. Um, Try to make you feel like you're less worthy than you are, that your opinion is worth less than it is, that your experiences don't matter as much, or if you do, or if they do matter, maybe you didn't remember them properly, things like this, right? That is referred to as gaslighting. Secondary gaslighting is when friends and family members unwittingly pass that same kind of abuse on. And so if they approach an adult and they say, "Hey, listen, I'm struggling with this," and they say, "Well, maybe it's not as bad as you think it is. I mean, you just have to have the right kind of mentality about the whole thing," and they just completely undermining the argument that maybe what they are experiencing is valid and real. Um, so that's secondary gaslighting. So they're doing the same work as an abuser on accident usually, and especially if they are somewhat familiar with the person. That even makes it worse. The more familiar they are with the person, it almost seems to make it worse, which is to say, well, this situation shouldn't make you feel this way. I was there. I was a part of this situation. So this is probably a distortion in your memory or something like this. Or I, I hear what you're saying, and I definitely believe you, but I also find it difficult to believe that someone that I know so well and has such great character would ever do something like that. Are you sure that that's really what happened, right? And this kind of discussion completely undermines the confidence of the person telling the story, and it's very dehumanizing actually. Um, and it makes them shut down. It makes them not want. Well, two things, I suppose. Either there's an overreaction, um, so they end up trying to share too much in order to make up the difference, or it makes them not want to share at all, right? And then you have what's referred to as tertiary gaslighting, which is usually done by an institution or by a higher authority that neither knows you nor your experiences. They don't know the person involved. They don't know the situation. Um, and so one of the reasons that that's challenging is that you'll find someone um, like a counselor, right? Like a therapist, pastor, someone in a higher authority, someone that knows you generally. However, their distance from the actual situation causes them to make judgments and suggest decisions based on very limited data functionally. And as a result, they're unable to make objective decisions or what should I say? Not decisions. They're unable to reach certain conclusions um, in an appropriate way. because they're biased by, well, why would somebody do something like that? Or why would this situation make you a victim? It seems like you're the one making yourself a victim in the situation, right? Um, because they're not a part of the whole scenario. Um, and it's not because they don't have skin in the game. They may have skin in the game from the perspective of they want to continue a relationship with you, they want to help you, but as far as the conclusions that they draw, um, it's very difficult and unlikely for them to come to a conclusion that that represents your own experience. Otherwise, again, the alternative is if they agree with you too much, they're so open-minded to the idea of whatever it is that you're sharing as you're sharing it is like capital T truth. Both of these experiences can be very traumatizing to someone, or I should say re-traumatizing to someone who's experienced a significant amount of trauma to the point where they, like I said, they've given up on life, they've given up on school or relationships or whatever the issue is. Um, both of those can be very toxic responses to the problem. Um, because if you are dismissing out of hand what their experience is, right, that's dehumanizing. But it's also dehumanizing if you're accepting out of hand without asking probing questions and sort of just sort of validating anything and everything they're saying um, without any kind of like I said, no follow-up questions, no rise for concern aside from anything that you've said, as if they have nothing personal to add themselves to the conversation, or that you have nothing to add in addition to what you've already said, right? Um, so, so those are the three forms of gaslighting. You know, primary coming from the abuser themselves, secondary coming from people that know you and functionally know the abuser, even if that abuser is like a system, like a school system, not just a person. Um, and then tertiary gaslighting or third level gaslighting is coming from an institution itself or coming from someone that speaks for an institution. Again, like a therapist, a pastor, a doctor, something like this. Um, I guess tying this back into what I was saying at the beginning of this stream today about my own health issues. You know, when people experience thyroid problems, they're often treated as if they're crazy to begin with. They're treated for the depression symptoms if you're hypothyroid, um, or they're treated for symptoms of mania or anxiety if they're hyperthyroid. But it's not until they really dig deeper that they actually see, oh, this is an organic problem. This is not your fault. Um, because for someone like myself, who's I have experienced both the anxiety that comes from having an overactive thyroid, and I've also experienced the anxiety that comes from being anxious. I know the difference between the two, and I know that they don't play very well together, but I can distinguish the two from the other, or one from the other. And so if my doctor starts to say things or do things that indicate um, that when I say that I'm anxious about something or I'm having a panic attack about something, if if I'm telling him that it's not coming from a place of organic anxiety, it's not like I saw something or was triggered by something. It's not like my blood sugar dropped and that caused a panic attack or something like this, right? It's me just having regular conversation and then um, having these reactions nevertheless. Or, like in my case, how I went from drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day to not being able to consume any coffee at all because it would cause my anxiety levels to go so high almost immediately. It was like you had given a child caffeine. And so, that's a point of concern. And so when I originally mentioned that to him, that I was having, problems with stress response, his initial thought was, okay, well, we'll increase your anxiety medication and see how that goes. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I went from drinking coffee all the time, whenever I felt like it, whenever I was thirsty, right, to not being able to handle it at all. Like, this is not a simple anxiety issue, per se. And so I knew to push back, and I knew how to push back to make sure that I was heard. Um, a lot of people, whether it's with your physical mental health overlap, or in the case of teenagers now and the schooling situation and what's working for them and what's not, and the prospect of them flunking out of school because they don't know how to acclimate into this new learning environment. Um, that is that's tragic. One of the questions that I had asked the mother was whether or not she had contacted the school counselor, or what that process looks like now in a COVID era. Because typically, if someone's flunking out of school, there would not only be parent-teacher conferences, but there would also be a meeting between the counselor and the student, and possibly between the counselor and the parents, and the counselor and the parents and the student together. That would be the norm. Okay, we'll say at least back when I was in school, that would be the strategy to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. And again, I don't know the answer to that question now. Okay, I haven't been in school in a minute. I don't have any kids in school, so I don't know. But what I do know is that if a child in particular, I mean, this happens to adults too, but if a child in particular is having difficulty articulating how they're not able to acclimate to a new environment, this can happen when parents are separated and they end up moving into different houses and stuff like that. It's not always traumatic, and sometimes the separation or the divorce itself may not be, well, we'll see where this goes, may not be that traumatic to the child, but the actual move, that physical separation into that new location, it may very well trigger that point of isolation anxiety, even though their friends haven't changed, their school hasn't changed, right? But moving into a completely different environment is going to shift things for them a great deal. And so when you have a kid that was going to school and is no longer in school, then there is going to be a huge gap for some people, even if they have the same teachers and they have the same schoolmates and everything else, right? So it's not like they've moved houses per se. They're right where they were before. but they're playing a different role in that space. And I will say this about the individual in question um, happens to be on Adderall, right, which is dextroamphetamine. Which there's a pharmacologically insignificant difference um, between methamphetamine and dextroamphetamine. It just one happens to be cleaner. It comes from a lab as opposed to um, somebody's basement. So that's the principal difference between the two. Um, One of the things that's worth noting about that particular drug, though, is not just because it's basically meth. Um, the, the difficulty with that drug is that studies have shown that you have a tendency to want to be in the same place that you take the medication at, or that it goes into effect at. And um, if a child is on Adderall and they're used to taking their medication um, in the morning right before they go to school, and it lasts them all day. Maybe they take it at night too. Um, but then there's a cycle that kind of builds in their mind where they have a personal desire to be in places where that medication is having the most impact on their mental function. And so if you have students that are hooked on this medication and all of a sudden they go from taking that medication and being able to function with their friends at school, right? So there's a social connection with that as well, right? So it's not just a physical thing, it's also social. This is precisely why I didn't want to try this theory. Anyway, um, if they're not able to talk to those same friends the same way, they're going to experience a kind of anxiety that they're not going to be able to articulate. It's not going to come out in words. Like, you basically have to know how the drug works in order to proceed with an effective conversation about a change in location, a change in social habits. And what does that mean for a teenager in particular? So I have some idea, when she was speaking to me about her daughter and their family concerns and all that. I do have some idea where she's coming from, and I can also see the problem for what it is. Um, it's very complicated. It is very complicated. And I don't know how we begin to expect the teenagers of our day to be able to explain out loud why they feel some of the things that they're feeling right now. Um, Ferris must have hit level 30, because that's a new one on me. Okay. Is it really worth it for these level ups? On the plus side, there is a knife in this game called Chicken Knife. And its power goes up for every battle that you run from. So this could help build that up for us, I guess. Speed it up. Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh, do I even have the Frost Rod equipped? I don't. Interesting. Why is she so much weaker than him? So I just now realized, after a couple decades of playing this game, that Lena is supposed to have some kind of like hairband on, maybe, but it looks like she's a low-key unicorn. I don't know how intentional that was. I feel like we're getting more experience. That's for sure. But I don't feel like this is any quicker. I think around the 2-hour mark, I'm gonna take a break. I have some work to do before work officially starts. I got home from work at 11 last night. I slept until like 5:30 this morning. Anyone that knows my sleep schedule knows that is very strange. But I exhausted myself yesterday. Pushed myself too much. That's the thing I was trying to explain to one of my employees, because I was actually on site yesterday instead of at home working. I was trying to explain to her my medical situation. And how, even though it seems like I could be jacked up and have enough energy, to bench press a house at some point, at one point I actually had to put my head down. And I passed out for a good 15-20 minutes. It's like all of a sudden just sleep took over. I was like, oh no, let me just put my head down before I fall down. Same was true when I got home. I had stuff I was supposed to do for work when I got home. But I laid down on my bed. I was like, all right, I'll just lay down here for maybe an hour or two. I didn't get up for a solid, 6-7 hours. It's wild to me. Have we've been to lakes, yeah. Phoenix Down's not for sale, but I almost never get put in the tiny status. But I wonder. Beastmaster, those can be sold. You didn't see that. Alright. In the next segment, I will finish up the last of my grinding session. Double check to make sure I haven't missed anything before we go to the next world. We should be good to go. Normally I'm like level 33 when I go over, so this is pretty much on par. I think 31 is fine, but I'm clearly just a little bit away from mastering Summoner. And then again, storing up some money so that we don't have to grind so hard when we get to the second world to buy the stuff that we need. So all that being said, if you made it this far, I certainly appreciate you. And I look forward to the next one.